part 5.1 of the Killer Food Plot series. I'm super excited to talk to you today about Border Patrol. Border Patrol is a very dynamic seed blend that I produced, started creating 18 years ago. Border Patrol is just what it sounds like. It's a screening product. It creates a border or a perimeter around your food plot, and it creates some interior screening walls within the food plot to create more daytime movement. The goal and objective was, how do I get my mature bucks and does to get up out of their bed during daylight to visit the food plot? We want them moving in and out of that food plot during legal shooting hours and the time of the day where we're able to capitalize on their movement through the food plot. By creating a screen around that food plot, mature bucks that would normally hang off in the timber away from the edge and they would be able to scan a wide open food plot are now forced, if they want to check what's going on, they have to enter into the food plot through the opening. Border Patrol creates an 8 to 14 foot soft edge screened wall that the deer can penetrate if they need to in a pinch point or if they're threatened in any way, shape, or form, but they don't. They generally travel in path of least resistance. They enter into the food plot. As they do, there's an immediate wall as the buck enters. He cannot see from one end to the other of the food plot, which forces him out to the end, turning and giving you, from your vantage point as you're watching this video, an ideal broadside shot, high percentage kill shot on that animal that you're hunting. As he turns the corner to travel down, there's another immediate wall, and that distance varies depending on the size of your food plot, as does the number of walls. In this instance, we have a 1 1/4 acre food plot where we've created 2 internal walls, creating 3 sections. Those 3 sections are planted with the different varieties of food plot from the edible, digestible standpoint. And the Border Patrol screening also, as it's growing, contains 40% available food. 20% is our climbing vining spring pea, and the other 20% is our Killer Food Plot Forage climbing bean. Both of those food sources allow the edge area of the food plot to be a very high protein spring and summer food source while producing a midsummer and late fall winter screening to produce that movement that we're looking for during the hunting season. So where do we use the Killer Food Plot Border Patrol? We use it on almost every food plot we can where we have at least 8 to 12 hours of available sunlight. Full sun all day is ideal for Border Patrol, but to achieve 6 to 8 foot tall, if you have at least 8 to maybe 10 hours of sunlight, you can utilize the Border Patrol in your food plot plan and realize its benefits. So, in planting the Border Patrol, you want to plant it just outside the drip line of your tree, so the overhanging branches, so that you get the ideal sun. Then, we plant that about 6 to 8 foot wide, creating the exterior walls around our perimeter of our food plot. And we want to create some openings where it's ideal for our deer to enter and exit, and we hang a stand on either side of that for our interception points. On the interior walls of the Border Patrol, where we create that maze effect, getting the deer to move side to side, maximizing the amount of time they're on the property, we generally plant those walls about 3 to 4 foot wide. So we use a small green handheld seeder so that you can control how wide you're planting. We want to stop them short of the exterior wall, creating that T effect off of one side with an opening on the other, so that the deer can easily navigate, but also allows us for an optimum bow shot, crossbow, or gun opportunity to be able to get a high percentage kill shot on the side of that deer as they turn that corner. In an interior food plot wrapped in woods, we often think, I already have cover, I really don't need screening. The reality is that mature buck will stand in that woods and survey that food plot. There's no reason for him to commit, he's not going to do it. So by creating even a smaller version of that screening, it will force the buck to go into the food plot, travel through the maze side to side, and you'll realize the benefit. Maybe you're not able to give 6 to 8 foot wide perimeter. Skinning that up even to 3 to 4 foot wide will give that element of screening and make that deer follow the pattern in which you have established in your food plot. Another great way to use the border patrol is to wrap it around an elevated gun blind or an elevated stand in which you put a pop-up on, or around or approaching a tree stand that's on a field edge. Maybe you don't have a food plot. Maybe you're hunting the edge of a bean field or a corn field. Wrapping the perimeter of those corn and bean fields will produce a lot better activity and create that inside edge feel to a food plot that is established by the farmer or by somebody who's leasing that ground in order to put in agricultural crops they plan to harvest. Once those crops are harvested, all that residual corn and beans that are in the field that your deer are browsing and trying to dig and find will produce more activity in that inside corner as a staging where they stop and look and survey the field before they enter out into that cut bean or corn field, giving you again another advantage. Another way we use it is we use it as a perimeter at the road. If we have exposed field areas, in this case agricultural fields with corn, beans, or any other thing that gets harvested come fall, by creating a screen or a buffer during the late spring and early summer, those people that are out there with their binoculars trying to take an inventory of the deer that are in your soybean fields, for instance in August when deer are in their big velvet stage, this blocks people from having any idea that that trophy buck that you're chasing is even present, limiting the chances that they're going to go knock on Mrs. Smith's door and say, hey, can we hunt behind your house or in your little section of woods and capitalize on your deer. Say you have that neighbor. 85% or more of our customers have a neighbor that's a problem, that likes to sit right on the property line and hunt into our property. A lot of times that happens on field edges or two tracks or trails. So we will line that entire edge 8 to 12 foot wide with Border Patrol, limiting the opportunity for deer to want to penetrate that wall and travel in front of that person's stand or blind. Instead, channeling them down and away from those locations and before they cross over the fence or into the neighboring property, limiting the opportunity for that maybe management buck that you don't want to shoot because he's only 2.5 or 3.5, or that trophy buck or doe that you're chasing on your property. So, when do we plant Border Patrol? Border Patrol is usually planted late spring, early summer. It can be planted in the upper Midwest as late as July 20th, and down in the south, usually till about mid-August. Border Patrol should be able to achieve between 8 and 14 foot tall, so it's a very tall vegetation. The earlier you can get it in the ground, the better. But what's critical is you need 60-degree ground temperature at night in the early spring to plant it. If you plant it much before 60 degrees, it can cause the newly germinated seed to mold and to kill it off. So make sure you can use a temperature probe like you'd much use for meat, stick it in the ground, make sure you're getting 60-degree ground temperature at night consistently. If you need another point of reference, look to see when your farmers are planting soybeans, because soybeans also, as a legume, require 60-degree ground temperature at night. So how do you plant Border Patrol? Well, Border Patrol has a pretty consistent seed size. I generally broadcast it out of a hand seeder, depending on if it's a handheld or a shoulder version. We often use a bag shoulder seeder. You want to plant it between 8 and 10 foot wide on the perimeter and 3 to 4 foot on the inside. That's pretty hard to manage with a push or a shoulder spreader to only get 3 to 4 foot wide on the interior. So we often use a small hand seeder where we can control the speed and the distribution of the seed. Once the seed is broadcast out into the areas where we want it planted, you come back with a drag harrow and you want to do a single pass over the seed to set it down at 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch underneath the soil, followed by either rolling or cultipacking. If you don't have the available tools to do those steps I just talked about, you can also manage that with a heavy tine rake to follow those patterns around your food plot and just rake and cover the seed. It's very important that the seed be underneath the surface of the soil, not only to aid in the germination and the root establishment, but also so that the birds and the turkeys don't come and steal your valuable seed from your seedbed area.